contrast, they can't see very well. That's actually in use, right? Not really related to testing it in the laboratory and functional testing. That's quality in use. So you have different users, different parts of the process, different things to measure along the way. And like I said earlier, if you do all of these things on the left, then that usually leads to better quality for the users. One important thing to note is the thing there where it says influences and depends on. So we all know that if you are TMMI certified, you have a great process, doesn't necessarily mean you have good testing. It could lead to good testing, but not always. So that's why there's influences and depends on. If you had a direct line, that would be best, because you can say, well, if we have TMMI or CMMI, then you have good software, but we know that that's not always true. So the dimensions of software quality, we have internal quality, external quality, and quality in use. Just like I said, you have other dimensions like people, right? Progress. So metrics exist across all of these dimensions, and it's important to think about the different dimensions that you should collect metrics in different places along your process, according to different roles. So you have balanced metrics, not just all related to, defects and testing. Does that make sense? You have to have a good balance of metrics to get an overall view of the quality of your product. Here's another chart showing kind of what we just did here. The types of people that it's important to, how is it measured, what is measured, right? So who here has a very well-defined testing process in their company? And what parts of the process do you measure? Does anybody want to talk about that?
Yeah, I would like use ISO 17025 and ISO 29119 for the processes. So whatever we do, we are stick on that process. So yeah, so the processes aim to that 29119 part 1 to part 4. Whatever we do, that was based on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would be an example of that? What do you mean?
So let's say if you are trying to do a testing, so laboratory testing, so you need to follow a certain hierarchy where you want to report to who is going to approve your report. We have that structure.
Okay.
So even a small tester also you need to report to the leads, and the leads need to report to the management, upper higher management if they find something.
Okay, good. So you were in the class just before this.
Yeah.
Do you want to get up here and explain that? I'm just going to give you an opportunity because this is applying what we learned this morning to real work stuff. Okay, come on, give it a try. Give it a try.
Okay, so in our lab, so as you can see, we have a specific process. Whether if you wanted to start the testing, so the testing project must undergone to the top management first. So it's not as simply that you can go and ask a certain unit to test whatever they want. So the order need to come from the above, so you need to go all from top to bottom. So same goes with if you find an issues, reporting must be as a hierarchical reporting. That's it. So that's the process.
Thank you.
Isn't that process a burden for you?
Yes, because that's the thing. The process that we use, the report that we produce, can be used in the court. So those things, you must follow that.
Looks like you have follow-up questions.
So we are involved in arbitration cases also. We do a lot of things. We prove the other parties are doing malicious things also.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's just a summary of what good metrics are. One of the things I didn't talk about was, these are all pretty clear, but number 3 is important, easily collected, right? So you don't want to have metrics or measurements that are too hard because you just quit. Okay, so that's important. The other thing that I don't mention here, I'll say out loud, is the repeatability and accuracy. So you want to be able to repeat it and have the same number, right? Just like when you get on the scale and you weigh yourself, you get on, you weigh yourself, you get off, and you weigh yourself again. You want to make sure it's the same number, right? So your metrics have to be like that too. You have to be dependable. If they're not dependable, and somebody has some excuse, you're giving somebody an excuse not to listen to your metric. Does that make sense? So you could get on the scale and say, oh, it's 82 kilos, but you were wearing this, or but you didn't do this, but you didn't eat last night, so that doesn't count. Your metrics have to be dependable, right? So think about the metrics that you're collecting and think about the dependability so that nobody can question them. So this is again a question thing. So we have the goal and the questions. So think about questions that your metrics need to answer. Okay? Here's just a couple of them. I'd like you to take 2 minutes and think about questions that you want your metrics to answer. Take 3 minutes. What kind of questions do you want your metrics to answer? Maybe for you it would be, are people coming to work today?
Just joking.
Yeah.
If you want to, you can start backwards. You can think of some metrics for sure that you know that your company is collecting, and you can think of what question does that answer. So you can go backwards if you want to.
You do automation. Why not?
Okay, does anybody have any questions? You guys,
So, first question that we should ask is, does the requirement being signed off?
okay,
First question. Then the second one is, are the test cases created covering the requirement coverage?
okay, good ones.
And then the third one is there a high medium severity bug still open?
Okay, good. Anybody have any other good questions? Is it security compliant? All right. Okay, good one. Anybody else?
Are we spending the QA time effectively? Like, are we doing the right thing, or is it just a waste of grunt work?
Good one. Are we spending QA time effectively? Okay, so we have a goal of quality, we have questions, and next we want to come up with metrics that go with each question, that answer the question, right? But what I'd like you to think about is we want to be efficient. Like I said, we don't want to collect too many metrics. We want them to be easy to collect. So it would be great if we could have metrics that answer more than one question. That makes sense? Yeah. So we want to do like this, and maybe use this. Maybe this one answers that question, something like maybe that one helps answer that question, things like that. So eventually we're going to have a bunch of questions, we're going to have a bunch of metrics, and then we kind of map them up to what questions they answer to our goal, and we try to get efficient at the number of metrics that we're collecting, right? Because we don't want to collect 20. Too much. Okay. To me, that means that you have to really go back and look at your test strategy.
Then I definitely fail the exit criteria. So we need to get a balance between the exit criteria and we have a hard things timeline.
That's why.
So the workaround is whether we continue with SIT while we are starting to so that's the workaround that does.
Okay. So you had a comment?
Come back to the question. How much risk that you are willing to take? So that's the organization need to decide whether they are risky enough to take the risk or not. So that's why when we advising, so I'm be doing an independent verification validation for quite some time. We do spell out the risk that you are facing, what we will get in the future if we are still continuing that method. But at the same time, we also advise you to take it. You can have a several options to run whatever you want to run to ensure that you are completed on time. So that's all we do.
So if it's like what you're saying, then it does keep going up like this, even though you're doing this here, then that means you really need to look at your strategy. Yeah. That's what that tells you. And you should talk to your test manager, or your development manager, or whatever, and say, hey, we're doing something wrong. We should be finding all of these important defects earlier, right? So.
But there is no way you can move to UAT until you have an SIT sign-off. The sign-off has to also say that, are you signing off this, knowing that you still having this amount of defect going on, right? So there's already a check-in there. If they're signing off this and they understand the risk that they want to continue the test in UAT to further uncover the defects in the UAT stage.
Right.
Maybe sometimes it was due to project timeline. We also have that situation, say that we cannot extend SIT forever, we have to move to UAT because other teams are also needing to test some other stuff.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure I answered your question, but I think I understood your question a little better. I think it's really more of a test strategy issue and a test planning issue in gates and acceptance criteria, setting those criteria. So. Sometimes the answer is not 38. I'm sorry. Yeah. I wish I could, answer it definitively like that, but it's just from the Defect economics, right? We all know this. So why is this though? Why is it better to find defects early? And this will go back to your test strategy. Why is it better to find defects early? What about that though?
So the cost of fixing or changing the requirement inside the document, they say $1 per hour is comparable to rather than 1 hour of fix. Developer need to fix the code to become $100.
Yeah. So the reasoning behind that, okay, for a product manager or requirement specification to change a sentence at that time takes a few minutes and some thinking, of course, right? If you do that later, then it's already developed and the guy has to go back and look at his code and figure it out, and then maybe he has to find it in his code. That takes longer and longer and longer, right? So the earlier you find the problem, the less time it takes, because the guy that's developing the code, the guy that's testing it, or the girl that's doing all that stuff, there's less time it takes than it takes to change your requirement, much easier. So that's why it costs much more to do it later after it's in production. So it's in production, it's already, so what do you have to think about when it's in production and you find a defect and you fix it? Then you have to think about what other things it affects when you fix the defect. And you have to do all that testing around that too. So that's why it's so expensive. Okay. So AI is supposed to, and I think I showed yesterday in that really short video, that AI is meant for early detection. So it does a lot of things much quicker than we could do it by hand. All right, so what kind of things did I show yesterday? I showed there were some security issues, there were some performance issues, there were accessibility issues. Those kinds of things can be found by AI very quickly. And so that would really encourages, I guess somebody's attending the class remotely. It really encourages quick finding defects. Okay, velocity. So who measures velocity in their agile process? Does anybody measure velocity? Okay, so what does it do for you? Okay, good. So that's the purpose of the velocity, is planning your work, not to get faster, not necessarily to get faster. It's really a planning tool for workload. So velocity is a planning tool for workload, not speed. Okay, that's an important thing to remember, because a lot of people, the word velocity automatically means, oh, I want to be fast. But it's really a planning tool for the amount of work that you're supposed to do, right? Here's another one, burn down of stories, right? Another thing that's also a planning tool. Nothing to do with speed. Unplanned work, this is a really important one. Who tracks the unplanned work? Good. So unplanned work is very critical. Work allocation. So I think one of you guys mentioned, where are the testers spending their time? Right? Who raised that issue about where are testers spending their time in the value? I think it was you. Yeah. Right? So it's important for testers to track what they're doing. Are you writing test cases? Are you executing test cases? Are you reviewing requirements? All those things are really important. So that's not necessarily across testers, but across an agile team, what they're doing. And you see that defect fixing should really be tracked. And when you spend more time fixing defects than you are doing new features, then that's a problem. I mentioned this before, the unplanned overtime. The unplanned work leads to unplanned overtime. And I call this sustainability, because you can't keep doing overtime over and over. If you keep having overtime, what does that lead to? I mentioned defects number one, but what else does that lead to? What's that? What? Okay, what does that lead to? That leads to people quitting. What's that?
Emotional intelligence going down.
Well, more arguments, more quitting. People quit. And that's really bad for an organization, because when people quit, then you gotta find new people, you gotta train them. That's a lot of work. A lot of work. So overtime is a big deal, and you don't think about it, but it is a huge impact on quality and the whole organization. So a lot of times it's helpful to do a correlation or do a cause and effect. So remember we had the upstream metrics and the downstream metrics. So a upstream metric, what would be upstream from defects? We had just one just a minute ago, which was overtime. So what kinds of things, we're showing two dimensions here. We're showing defects and overtime. What kinds of things would go before that? Let's think about that in the whole process. If we want to decrease these things, we want to decrease overtime, we want to decrease defects, what kinds of things would we measure earlier that would impact that? Anybody have any ideas? What's that? Resource plan? Okay, so maybe the amount of resources planned versus the amount of resources spent, or the hours spent. So that means you didn't plan very well. So your planning accuracy, maybe that would be a good one. Your planning accuracy. Is your estimate of the amount of work that has to be done accurate? And so if you keep having misestimates, the estimating incorrectly, then you better go back and look at that and think, okay, well, why am I estimating incorrectly, right? What else would go into, what are the kinds of upstream metrics that would impact these things? What's that? Coverage, okay. Requirements changes, that's another one. It's called requirements volatility, requirements changes. So you could measure requirements changes just like you could measure defect arrival rates. Every week we have 3 changes in the requirements, right? So changes in the requirements are going to affect us too. So if you measured that and you focused on requirements changes, what would that force you to do? Well, so if you're going to measure requirements changes, how do you prevent requirements changes? What's sign off? Okay, but how do you get something signed off? Okay, that's one. So a requirement has to be complete and accurate, right? So you would measure those kinds of things. This is the and you can use AI to do that. You could ask AI, is this requirement complete? Do I have all the scenarios covered, and is it accurate? Does it accurately describe what I want to do? So that's one way the AI can help you. And then you get less requirements changes. Then you get better planned work, right? all leading to this. So think of all those metrics we just discovered just now. Okay. So we have this, which one? I would say probably, which ones do you guys depend on the most? Which ones do you as testers use the most? Number one, raise your hand. Number two, raise your hand. Okay. Number three, raise your hand. Okay. Number four. Okay, so you all measure these things quite a bit, but I would bet you don't measure those other ones we just mentioned too much. Okay. So I'm not going to ask you to do this. Oh, I will. Okay. Based on all of what we just covered, I'd like you to think of a list of 10 metrics that you think would be useful for you to measure. Because you had 4, we have 4 here, right? Which ones are you going to add that are further upstream that are going to impact the defects? You ready to go? 5 minutes? 1, 2, 3, go. And so this builds on what we learned already, right? So we have the metric, we have the audience, the CTO or the tester, the VP development, and we also have the goal. What are they going to do with that metric? Why do they want that metric? What is their objective in having that metric? What decision are they going to make based on that? Okay, so we just had a big discussion on different metrics and what leads from one number to the next. And our goal is to reduce the defects, right? So what kinds of things would lead to that? Think about that. I'll give you 5 minutes.